Hey everyone, it's Simon here from Aquabatics, checking in with our weekly live interview. And I know I say this every week. I'm always carrying on about how excited I am for the guests that we have, but I think I may have upped the level of excitement this week, and it's quite crazy to me because I met the bloke yesterday. First time I've chatted with Jon Frith. He's the race organizer, race director of the Yukon 1000, which is a paddling event that is very near and dear to my heart. So I'm going to bring Jon into the stream here, and we're going to get a bit down and dirty and learn all about expedition paddle sports racing from the master. Hey Jon, how's it going, man?
Good mate, how are you?
I am doing very well, and I'm super excited to chat about this because it's, I don't know, this is one of my more fond expedition kind of memories, and it just happened to be in the framework of a race. So I'm really stoked to be hearing about this from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So, I think all of these interviews kind of go a certain way. So we'll stick to a bit of a formula, and we'll let you kind of let us know where you are in the world right now, and we'll go from there.
So, like most of us, I'm on lockdown. I'm actually in a little wardrobe right now, stuck. No, I'm at home I live just outside Winchester, a really old little village, 12th century church, proper archetypical English looking. Just Stonehenge down the road. Yeah, I'm at home. Sadly not in the Yukon, heading to the Yukon.
Yeah, man. So you definitely, to me, I lived in the UK for a bit, but you don't have a southern accent. Sounds like your origin story is from somewhere else.
Yeah, so originally I use this line all the time. I'm from the north, where we had the wall to keep the Scots out. But I'm from there, but the weather sucks, so I moved south. Yeah, I joined the military when I was 16 years old, and so your accent gets put into a melting pot with everybody from all over the UK, and you come out with something mixed like what I've got now, and everybody that's English just stares at you like a weirdo and thinks you're a Kiwi or an Aussie or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, what you were in the military for 7 or 8 years, I believe, and what branch of the military were you in? What was your role at the beginning? Because I know it changed as you went through, but how did that start for you?
Yeah, 25 years. 25 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's a good stretch. So by trade, I was an infantryman. So I specialised at the sharp end stuff, and then I moved around inside the military and climbed the ladder, and I made it a full career. And just I guess just like expeditionary stuff, you either have a taste for it and you like doing that sort of stuff, and you like going away and you like the hardship and the fun that comes with it, or you don't. And for me, it was a great life. And there's a saying that it turns a bad boy good, and vice versa. And so it worked for me. And I got at a young age to see the world. It was great. And so my experience that I enjoyed out of it, I took with me into where I am now. I spent years living in the deserts, years living in the mountains in hostile countries around the world, learning the cultures, the languages, and being really tested and challenged. And I guess later on in life, as I got sort of higher, I was less physically challenged. And I'm not a person who subscribes to using age as an excuse. I've never really slowed down. It might hurt the next day a little bit more, but I've never really slowed down. I did a 5K run the other day as quick as I was doing it when I was 20. Absolute in rag the next day. But
yeah, exactly.
So I've never subscribed to it, and I got to an age where I was there for my brain and my experience, and not the practical application and stuff. And I missed that. So and I didn't realise how I missed that. And I kind of guess there's a mental health thing involved in it as well. And I certainly wouldn't go down the lines of PTSD or anything, but I needed something, and I couldn't work out what it was. So I did a couple of things, and I realised I was comfortable in chaos. When I was being tested, stretched, I was comfortable there. So things like the Yukon 1000 were really good for me. And those sort of events on the horizon, I need to sort of keep me focused. We all probably need these things to escape reality.
Yeah, definitely. And so a bit of a tangent on that, like obviously the physical fitness part of it has been a huge component of your life. Like that's a big part of the military, obviously. And, now you're locked down. I don't know what level of lockdown you guys are. What are you doing at the moment to sort of keep yourself honest and keep moving forwards in that capacity? Because I'm sure you're going to come out of this like just rolling at 150 miles an hour once it's done.
Clearly, I'm sticking to the guidelines and only staying in my house an hour a day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll run every day, and I've got a little sort of CrossFit gym. I won't sort of say CrossFit or endorse it. Some of it's great, some of it's rubbish. You know, I've never walked into a firefight doing a handstand, so I don't do stupid things like that. I'll scale it. I'll do stuff that works, that's practical.
Yeah.
So I'll mix it up, and and I've got a rowing machine, Concept 2, and I'll bash it out on that. I bought that last year. I was going to row across the Atlantic for Christmas, and but it's kind of fell through. And thank God, because it's boring, eh?
Yeah. Oh, dude, even rowing machines.
Jesus.
I'm not a gym guy. They're purgatory. They're boring and they're vicious. So I definitely think they're a good way to stay in shape, though. That's for sure.
Yeah, they're good.
And so, just to give everyone a bit of perspective, we were chatting. So I did the Yukon 1000 race in 2011, and I lifelong paddler, been paddling my whole life. I was 20, whatever, 25, 26, 27, somewhere in that. No, I was older, whatever, 30, whatever. When Jon first did the race, and this is kind of segueing into how you got involved in the Yukon 1000, he'd done a cumulative total of 4 hours of kayaking in his life. So talk about that. So you're going into a race, and we'll come back around to the organization of it all and the application, everything in a bit. But you go into a race that's 1,000 miles long, totally self-supported with Peter Coates, which we'll go into further. Where did that idea come from? Like, where on earth did that come from? I felt really prepared.
we were like touching on the other night, and so when I was looking for stuff to do, I'd done some stuff in the military that was pretty physically demanding, and I realised I had a good engine and I could just keep going and switch off. And so the 1,000 was something I'd seen and that could stretch that. And I rang Peter and said, hey, I think I can come and do this. Will you give me a slot? And Peter, in his flamboyant, eccentric English way, was like, yeah, come on over and sort of and give it a go. And but slightly backtracking from that, I went to this lecture in London at the Royal Geographic Society, and it was Ranulph Fiennes, who's one of our great explorers, was talking. And he was talking about walking to the polar regions, and he was talking about all this stuff. And if anybody's ever met him, or the reality of him, he's quite a grotty old grumpy man. Same as me, really. But anyway, I ended up talking to him afterwards because I was still a serving soldier, and he sort of saw the haircut and said, you've got a glint in your eye, you want to do something. And he said, everything I've just spoke about is utter bullshit. And I was like, really? Because you've been signing books and you've got thousands of people following you. He said, yeah. He said, real expedition, he said, is when you go into it and you have to master a new skill in order to achieve it. And so he said, one of his hardest ones was taking mechanical machinery, because he said he knew nothing about it, and he was baggage and added little value to the expedition. Right. And so I sort of took that away, and I thought, I know I can run with weight the long distances in hot, horrible conditions, because I've been doing that for a living. And how to prepare and how to train for it. What do I know nothing about? I don't like water. I don't like boats. So let's look at that. And I found I found the 1,000. And so you've been over the UK. Where you're going to train? I mean, even buying a decent canoe or renting one is nearly impossible. So I focused on the stuff around the fringes and knew that I hoped that I'd pick it up off other people on the way. But all the other stuff, we were pretty good, and we had some great mentors. And the mindset of the race, unlike anything else I've ever done in that respect outside of military, people don't want to see you. There's rivalry, but people want to look out for each other and they help each other. And that had a really residual effect on me. I was like, wow, the guys that won our race were phenomenal blokes. And they were, coaching us as we were crossing Lake Labarge and saying, you've got your paddle the wrong way around, mate. Just being really nice, but just telling us, coaching us how to get us through it. And I think that's the great thing about the race. And so it draws people from all walks of life, like you were saying, paddlers like you that are, no doubt awesomely talented paddlers that not genuinely know what you're doing, to people like me that's probably better off the boat than on it. So for everyone.
Well, you did it in a canoe as well. So Adam just checked in, my partner for the race, and our biggest competition in the race when we did it was a Voyageur canoe, right? So the big canoe with like six paddlers in it or whatever. And so one of the things you mentioned Lake Lebarge. So anyone who is considering doing this race in the future, Lake Lebarge is like this love-hate kind of a portion of the race, because it's day one, you got tons of energy and you're super fired up, and then you hit 50 kilometers of flat water, and it's long. It's one of the prettiest lakes I've ever been on. When we rolled into it, Adam is a sea kayak guide, kayak instructor, phenomenal paddler and leader. I've been paddling whitewater my whole life. The weather was shitty. It was really bad. And we're like, well, path of least resistance is right down the guts, right? So we went down the middle. And one of my fondest memories of the Yukon 1000 was Adam in the front of the boat in 3 to 5 foot swells coming down the lake. We were doing 2.5 kilometers an hour and just getting crushed, like totally crushed. But everyone else had pulled over. So whatever we were doing, we were getting ahead. And I think for me, that's what epitomizes this race. It is a true adventure. There's no one there holding your hand. You basically have a start line at the start, a finish line at the end, and everything in between is all you and your team. So you went from being a racer to running the event, so taking off Peter's hands. So maybe give us a bit of color and a bit of flavor about the conversations with Peter, try and help others who don't know Peter what Peter's all about, and then kind of maybe lead into how that evolved into you taking over as the race director of a race in a different country in a very remote part of the world.
The one thing that's striking about Peter is he's super intelligent, slightly quintessential eccentric Brit in an old school way. You know, he roams around Yukon, White Horse Town with the bow tie on, properly dressed, may I add. But his knowledge of something and his mastery, which is something that I really clung on to. You know, he doesn't cut corners. He knows what he's talking about, and he will research it, and he doesn't take risk lightly when he does stuff. And that really shone, and I kept that in the back of my mind. And so after the race, anyway, went back to the UK, and you know, I'm the sort of person, I bury it. It's done. Yukon 1000 is done. Love the place up there. Never going back. Now I'm going to do something else. And I was going to walk to the pole on my own or something stupid, but I kind of went back to work for a little bit, and then I think we were known on the race when I did it for, we may not be good paddlers, but our equipment, our skill sets, the things how we did things, people sort of took note. And when we got back, a few people come and asked me to sort of do talks in London to a few people and stuff, which was not really my scene normally. But I thought, okay, I sort of did it out of a friendship thing because we got to know them on the race. And then before you know it, I got a phone call from a guy who out in New York actually worked for a bank, an ex-Forces guy, and said, I do this sort of corporate stuff. Would you come out and help? And I was like, I had a bit of leave. I was still serving it. Okay. So jumped on a plane, went back out there, ended up taking over this expedition for him, running it and delivering it in a way that if I was on the other end of it, what I want. So give everybody the skill set in a really condensed, intense package, and then let them lead their own expedition. And I would just trail on the end and just hopefully make sure that nothing severe happens. And I did a few of these, and I was picking a few other rivers, and I'd always bring Peter on board and say, what do you think about this? You know, I had some wazzing ideas. You know, we're going to do stack line, we're going to parachute into the lake, and then, and then blow up some one of the little canoes that go down rivers, the little blow up ones, you know, paddle raft out of the mountains. And these are the kind of things I was looking at. And so Peter was great to bounce off. And then people started asking me about the 1000, and I just come out in a conversation and said, Peter, what are you doing with the 1000, mate? Loads of people are asking me. And I was thinking about doing it again, you know? And he was like, you know, I'm just getting to a stage in my life. He's well embedded with the Yukon River Quest. I can't do both. It takes too much of a toll. And like you said, he's a really good willed natured guy. Like we were talking about previously, he was probably getting taken advantage of at the end. People turning up not on a race and a jolly, there for weeks at a time waiting at the finish point for people that were just on holiday ambling down the river. And he's such a good bloke. You know, he'd stay up there and wait for them. I wouldn't. But he did, and he would, and it was taking its toll. And so and he's not getting any younger. So he said, right, John, go with it. Would you take it on? And so I was like, okay, mate, I'll give it a go. It tied in with an expedition I was leading. I went up there, planned it, built a basic website to sort of take it on, see what it was like. And kind of those who've done the races, you will know, I just felt, as I said to you, I just feel like a custodial. That's all I am.
Yeah.
You know, I don't own the river and I don't own the route. You know, I've just got the branding at the minute, and I'll hold it till I've had enough and give it to somebody else. And that's kind of, you're protective over it once you've done it. You know, it's a unique community. Hence, you know, we were talking about earlier. Really is.
Yeah, man. And it's and for those of you, I know there's a few people on here watching who are considering doing it in the future, and it really is, and this will kind of segue into some of the application stuff that we were sort of discussing, John. And so the race really is, like when I did it in 2016, it doesn't sound like it's changed much in a lot of ways. Like there's a sort of a level of organizational logistics that perhaps wasn't there at the start. Military background doesn't hurt with that, I shouldn't imagine. But you're basically totally self-supported for the duration of the trip. It's, you know, it takes anywhere from 6 days to 9 days. I think that's the cutoff now, 6 to 9 days. And you're just totally in the wilderness, and you've got to feed yourself, and you've got to manage any injuries you had. Like Adam, can you type in what you got? I don't even know what it was, but basically the sheath on his tendon in his wrist retracted, and he couldn't paddle for the last like 2 days or something like that. And you just got to deal with it because there's no real alternative.
There is no time.
There's no, and you get into the Yukon river flats, man. And sorry, I'm just adding some color here, and just chime in where you want, because I'm so passionate about this. That place is unreal. Like rolling into the Yukon river flats, I've been to paddled in 30 something countries, is one of the most memorable and unique experiences I've ever had. The river's so big, it's almost like a horizon line. You can almost see, it almost looks like there's waterfalls and stuff where there's not, and you can hear the permafrost cracking, and it's crazy. And you just like, it's creepy but exciting, and it's kind of crazy. And so you've managed in the space. Sorry, that was a total tangent, but I think it's an important one, because it's what it's all about. It's what it's all about. And I'm just like, man, I got to go back there just talking about it right now. So it went from a race where 10 to 12 or 15 people or teams was the maximum that would ever really even express interest with Peter, to having 2,000 applicants last year. So talk me through that process. Like what allowed you to do that? And then what should people be trying to bring to the table if they are looking at doing the race in something that's so competitive to get into?
Yeah. So firstly, the 2,000 applicants was a complete accident. I didn't mean that to happen.
Yeah.
It's your end of it, no. So actually, I've got a really good mate, Tim Dale. He's a Kiwi. And he's a producer, and he produced a great documentary called Beneath the Black about the All Blacks prior to the last World Cup. And he does some freelance stuff, and he's a good bloke. And I'd got a load of footage together, and I give it to him and said, you know, do what you will. And he made a great little video clip for anybody who's seen it. It sort of brings in a very short space of time the race to life. It shows a bit of hardship, what we all want. That's why we're there, and you're going to get stretched and tested. And it went out there, and sort of, you're looking on your Facebook profile, and you've got 2,500 people, but where this stuff goes is unbelievable. And it just went everywhere, and it just exploded. And we also had a new website built at the time, just sort of up professional that a bit more. And just the amount of interest we got and the people linking in, it was a game changer, which is a great thing. But as I touched on earlier, I'm never going to sacrifice the experience of the racer. And even if logistics were, I could get everything there at the end, which you can't. But even if I could get, you know, a battleship to come in and pick all the canoes up at the end and go back up the river. No, for me, in my mindset, the most important thing is the racer experience. If you're going down the river and there's so many boats all day long, you're not going to have the same experience. You're not going to feel isolated, alone. That you're going to need your own skills and wit, and you know you're not going to go through the same process. You know, when you're on the river, you know you should be thinking, if I get this wrong, it's game over. A lot.
Yeah.
Not a great thought, but you need that to because there is no coming back. So I also do a bit on the side for advise companies on large expeditions and global rescue. A bit of experience in the military about getting people out of remote places in the world, in hostile places, and so I know a little bit about it. And so, the reason why I take expeditions up there and go up there, one, there's no cell phone. and you cut off. And two, it is probably the most remote place left on the planet. It's declining population on the river. It's getting smaller, not bigger. There's less infrastructural finance into it for airports, platforms, etc. You see less boats down it. Every time I've been down it, it's quieter. And so it's going to stretch everything more than probably anywhere now. I'd argue in some cases, you're probably more likely to be easier to get out of the polar regions than right up there in the north.
Yeah.
You know, and I've stress tested that with a company called Global Rescue that we brought on board, because it is an extremely dangerous race. If you haven't got excuse the pun, shit in one sock, then you know it'll go wrong quickly for you. And testament to the last year that we run it was we had probably our most experienced wilderness team was a First Nation Canadian team, who were husband and wife, and they were awesome. And I'll tell you what, they could paddle. But about day 3 of the race, they went over in a really dodgy part of the river. They struggled to get to the shore. You know as well as I do, that can be a 45-hour swim to the shore, dragging the canoe. Another team sort of pulled them out, built a fire for them, got them going. And I have this saying that I say to the racers all the time. And initially, I'm not there to make friends at the start of the race. I'm there to make sure everybody gets through it. You know, we can make friends afterwards, but get on the race and stay alive. And I have this saying that I always take with me on every expedition, everything I do that I took from the military, and that is complacency is your enemy. When you cut corners, when you get complacent, bad stuff happens. And probably more than just accidents, it's complacency that's caused it. And they came out and they were like, we got complacent. Yeah, we cut a corner. You know, we were both moving in the boat at the same time, not talking to each other. Over it went.
Yeah.
Great people, and hopefully they'll come back at some point. But yeah, you know, you just don't realize how remote you are until you zoom out on that map and go, you know, if it goes wrong, who's coming?
Yeah, and it's super interesting because my wife is Canadian, and so this isn't coming from me. Like I live in Canada now and love Canada, but one of the things that Nikki has always said is that the culture in North America, it seems, and yeah, in North America is very much around if you can pay money to do it, it's safe, right? So whether it's whitewater rafting or whether it's rock climbing or whether it's mountaineering or whatever, I think there's a complacency there, right? Whereas this really isn't. It really isn't safe. Like it really is, and it's hard to not try and sound like you're sensationalizing it, but it really isn't. Like the boat that Adam and I paddled in was a 22.5-foot sea kayak with goodness knows how much volume. Like if the two of us ended up in the drink and the water's cold with all of our gear in the Yukon flats and you lose your boat, you really got not too many options other than like you've got a spot with you. So you might be able to get help there, maybe, or you walk out and you're completely on your own, right? Like the whole thing is it's very isolated and it's very remote. And I think that's part of the it's one of the coolest elements of it. And so when you're wading through these 2,000 applications, what are you looking for? What's the secret sauce? Like, and anyone listening, if you've got specific questions for Jon, feel free to put them in the comments. Like, what's the secret sauce? Because it's not straightforward at all. It's a bit of crazy British kind of, I don't know, depends how I felt in the morning.
So yeah, no, great question. So, and it was really when I sort of thought about this, okay, how am I going to do it? Put an online application and send it. I thought, okay, what did Peter do? And when I got on Peter on his website said, you've got to have done the River Quest, you've got to have done all these list of things in order to apply for the 1,000. And I sort of rang him up in my best English accent and sort of said, hello, mate. And just like when you rang me, I was expecting a Canadian, but I got Peter from Surrey. And I said, look, mate, I haven't paddled a yard in my life. I haven't got a clue what I'm talking about with paddling, and still don't consider myself a paddler now. I'm just an all-rounder. And I said, look, but I'll give it a good go. And this is a rough bit of my background. I know what I'm doing off the boat. I've got a year to learn how to do the basics. And would you give me a shout? And he was like, yeah, give you a shout. And I kind of like that. I like that old school approach. And I'm very much that sort of person anyway. So I guess if you're just upfront and honest in your application, and you've got a bit of humility and you say, hey, this is who I am. This is what I've got. This is the time I've got to be able to do your race. This is the person I'm with. And that goes a long way. But you get a lot of people that it's obvious. I've been around a while that I can tell bullshit. I'm either going to Google a few things to see if you did that or didn't do that, or you were that person. That they quickly discarded. I want to do it because I want a hat. It's probably not the best reason. Or a t-shirt. And, also we're going back to Peter again, but Peter was good bloke, but he was up there for weeks because people were on a jolly and on a holiday and they were just going down the river at their leisurely pace. I'm not having that. If you're on a jolly, this is not for you. This is, you're doing it in 9 days or you cut off. I'm not even going to shake your hand on the beach. I'm that type of bloke anyway, but I'm not even going to say, well done, get out, go home. It's a race. And you could quickly weed through those people. And then you get down to the really interesting people. And they're phenomenal. There's some phenomenal people out there. And it's truly, as a race organizer, it's one of the great parts of the job. It's some awesome people, especially doing all the cool shit that I want to do that, I haven't done. Oh man, I need to talk to this guy about that, and sort of it's so cool. And then you've got the sup guys then that are just the coolest dudes in the world, aren't they? The sup guys, they're just everything they say or do is cool. And then it quickly filters down. Then within that, you've got a nucleus of people that, unfortunately, I guess it's just how it is. They just want to do it for social media gains and stuff like that, and they'll say you need to pick me because I've got 60,000 followers on Instagram, and I'm just not that sort of bloke. I'm on here right now, but just going to get a delete. I couldn't care less about that kind of stuff. So it's not really me. Albeit I'm doing this, I don't really want to be on the other side of the camera. I won't seek it out. If you bring in BBC or Netflix, I'm not really bothered. I'd rather be on the other side. I'd rather be out of the way. Not the pressure of a film crew that's going to interrupt the race. So that's kind of where it goes. And I just really, just be yourself and be honest in what you write. And it really comes out. It's really obvious if you really want to do this and it's the right reasons you're doing it. Not because, and don't make your problem my problem. So I'm doing this for charity and I'm hoping to raise 100,000. That's why you need to let me on it. I'm not uncharitable, but I don't care. I'm running a race. It's for people to come and stretch like us. That want to test yourself, stretch yourself. If you're doing that as a side, great, happy. But I'm not going to get roped into promoting you and spending my time pushing your tweets out, and that's just not my style. I'm just not that sort of bloke. I'm there for the race to meet like-minded people and help you test yourself. I think does that answer your question without waffling on in my dull accent?
No, it's all good. No one here thinks you got a dull accent. Everyone who's listening in Canada's like fangirling over you right now. They love accents here, mate. You know that. So, no, I think it does. It's, for those of you who are considering signing up, just think of it as a self-supported expedition. Bring some background to it. Bring some acknowledgement that you don't know everything, because no one does. None of us go into that race knowing everything. And you probably have a pretty strong chance of it, right? So no, I think that was really good. So I just had a quick question. We'll move on to something. But Eric Anderson just had a quick question here. Is obviously this year is postponed, rightfully so. What's the plan as far as the regularity of the races?
Well, after this year, I was probably gonna, because it boomed, and actually, from that nucleus of people that made the cut, I could have filled 3 races, but I'm not going to do that. And as I said to you, the important thing for me, and I may even go smaller, I may go from 40 teams down to 30 to 35. Depends what the racers say to the end of it. If they have an experience where they don't feel like it was crowded or there's anyone else, I'll just take it down. I'm not bothered. But I'll try to do it every year. I'll tie it in. I'll do a couple of exhibitions beforehand, which is great for me. Then roll into that, and then I'll go home until the winter. So I'll try and run it every year. And I think that's probably the way I'll go forward with it. And then, one of the reasons I went all the way down the river last year is then every second or third year, this always gets a good hit. But I'm going to run another race. And I was looking at that, the Yukon 2000, which is from the source up in the mountains all the way out to the ocean. And I'll keep that really small, 10 to 15 teams. 15 teams. And you've got to have done the 1,000 before you do it. So that's probably where I'm gonna go next with that.
Nice. One of the things, like, just sort of maybe some color for you. Like, obviously people are more than happy to share feedback when you're a race director. We run a bunch of events and people are always very, very forthcoming and sharing what they think should be done. I found, like, an anecdotal thing for us when Adam and I did the race, there was only 6 or 8 teams or something the year that we did it. And one of the cool things about this race is you actually have no idea where you're, like, you have no idea if you're first. We had no idea if we were first. So we crossed the border at Eagle, and we had to call in because there was no one there to do the border crossing at that point. So we called in on a phone, and Adam's talking to the guy in customs, and he's like, "Hey, dude, can you check out the Yukon 1000 website? And can you look at the map page and tell us if our team is in the front?" So we're trying to figure out where we were in relationship to everyone else. And we figured out that we were ahead just through that. So we kind of cheated, I think, there, but that was that was creativity rather than cheating. But we got to the end. There's this big long straight before the bridge at the end, right? Like, so you paddle that big long straight, and we're paddling and we're totally bagged, and we see this canoe in the distance, like a kilometer ahead of us, and we're like, "You're shitting me. We're not first anymore. How did they pass us?" So we just start hauling ass. Like, Adam's wrist is basically flopping off the side of his body. He doesn't work anymore. And he's just like, "Whatever, man, I can paddle." And so we catch up to him. These Germans that they were doing a source to sea, but in a lot slower time than you did it in, John. And we'll go into that afterwards. And we just had this crazy discussion with them where they were like, "Oh, when did you start? And when did you start?" And we're like, "Oh, we started on Wednesday." And they're like, "What Wednesday?" They'd been on the river for 2 months. And we're like, "Last Wednesday." And in his broken German, he's like, "Oh, I think you need a Mars bar," right? And so, like, it was amazing, like, not seeing anyone on the river. Like, you virtually see not a soul. That was, like, I think one of the first groups we'd seen on the entire trip in 1,600 kilometers. And it was just this really funny interaction. And I think your commitment to not overcrowding it, I think, is just so valuable to the race itself. And because it's a huge part of it. If you were camping at the same campsites as other people, that would detract a great deal from it. And I think you'd agree, right?
Yeah, it really adds to the intensity. And I remember Peter, he made all his own tracking system. He's phenomenal brain on him to do that. You know, I can barely log in, and he had all that system, and we sort of replicated that now. But you could play back where you were, and you were like, camped on an island, and you were like, there was another team on the other end of the island that night. But
it's crazy, eh?
The only person in the Yukon, he's like, "No, what's there?" And if you're feeling that and your racers are feeling that, then I think you've got the balance right. And so you're going back. So I'm going to quick story, going back, quick vignette. So that when you pick up the phone at Eagle, I've been through that checkpoint like 5 or 6 times now, and it's always the grumpy bloke on the end who's like super grumpy. And he's like, "Yeah, what do you want?" Well, I'm just like, "I'm in America now." And so when I did the 1,000, it's the first time I'd been over the land border. So drive through Dawson, over the Alaskan Highway, and I went to where that border checkpoint is, and it's up on the mountains. It's really high up in the mountains, big caribou either side, roaming around in herds. And it's this small wood log cabin called Beaver. It's Beaver Creek. And the guy on the gate is like armed to the teeth, like the Taliban's about to overrun at any second. Car a week goes through it, and he's super grumpy bloke, and you can only imagine that he's there because he's like got drunk one night and told his boss that he hates him, so he's been like, and it's like the weirdest setup, and you think, how does that work with that? But going back to your question, crossing the border and going as you sort of push further on, and it's going back. It's dangerous, and it was going back to your last question. To give you an example how dangerous it is, you like that on the 1,000. We don't let people stop at hamlets. If I'm honest, some of the hamlets aren't very good, or some of the small villages and towns you don't want to stop at. They're probably not safe, and some of them are. And when I went down there this year, or doing research for the 1,000, and went up there as well. You'd be surprised how many people die up there. I think last year, up through the flats and around, 6 people were dead, killed. That's a telling. These are people that live up there. This is every time I've been down that river, it's been different, felt different, looked different. My maps have been different, and that's why it's an awesome place. Yeah.
Yeah, the flats are just ridiculous, man. Like I said, I've paddled all over the world. most of the continents, and it's just, I remember Adam and I just rolling into it and just being like, well, this is it. Wow. Like, and, you know, Adam is a super accomplished sea kayaker, has dealt with that navigation stuff in huge environments. It's not really I was glad to have Adam on the team at that point for sure, but we're just looking at it going like, oh my, and we had waypoints. We downloaded waypoints to the main channels and everything. And it was like you could see, and you're sleep deprived by that point as well, right? Like you haven't slept in 4 days or whatever it is by the time you get there.
Every log on the beach is a bear. You know, that's a long.
That's right, yeah. And I remember we heard the permafrost cracking, and we thought people were shooting at us, like because you're trying to follow the fast water. You know, you're trying to follow the fast water around the islands and everything, and then it just be like bang, and you'd be like, "Whoa, what was that?" And it took us a while to figure out that no one was shooting at us. It was just the permafrost carving off and everything. And so, yeah, it's just, oh man, yeah. I think we're getting totally off track, but we're both getting really excited. I like it. It's good. Yeah. There's a lot of energy around it. So with that, you know, you talk about keeping it small, and it's obviously, you know, there's going to, as it goes on, there's going to be frustrations for people who truly want to do it, and they'll apply multiple times and they won't get in, and that can be a bit dissuading, right? But you've talked about Netflix wanting to do media on it, the BBC wanting to do media on it, and that sort of thing. And that really, I feel like for you personally, as the custodian of the race, feels like it would kind of water it down to some degree. And so there'll be people who agree with that, which I am one of. There'll be people who disagree with that. Your stance on, you know, not over hyping it and over promoting it. Talk about that a little bit.
So I think one of the luxuries up front of running it is you can call it how you want to. And so, so I remember doing the race, and I remember then running the race, and I won't sort of call people out, but some people had a little bit of outside help. And when I did it, you know, I didn't even turn the satellite phone on. And stuff come out later that people were getting checks and stuff, and I was a little bit disappointed by that. You know, when I got out at the end, I didn't know whether I was first or last. I was like, don't know where we are.
Yeah.
And but I knew that I'd give my all. I knew that I'd let everything out in that river. Hey, I'm comfortable. First or last, I'll give everything I can. And so I think I want to keep it that way. And so that's why sealing, I'm going to seal phones now, and, you know, they're going in a tamper-proof bag. And I'm going to be pretty brutal, and I'm going to ramp it up a bit from last time. And if I get a sniff of it, you just delete it. You know, even if you finish it, I'm just going to, you got to start as you mean to go on. And so you got to keep it that way. It's all about keeping it as raw as possible. And it's not so much drawing the quantity of people in, it's the right people that you know that are going to come prepared, and they're going to be alive at the other end. You got to save people from themselves. I've come from a long career, and I've experienced enough things where I'd be mortified if somebody is killed on it. Now it's probably I'm realistic. It's a matter of time before we do have something serious on it. You know, it's big boys, big girls rules. That's the type of race it draws. You know, 95% of you that do it have done considerable stuff before. You know, you're not just raving amateurs that have just turned up. And so as long as you keep it at that, I think it will continue to work until something bad happens. But, you know, not on my watch. Hopefully.
No, and by vetting the people as best you possibly can, you give yourself the best chance of success around that, right? Like, and you sort of, I look at the analogy, perhaps, you know, we were talking about ultra long distance running, like you run, I run, and people go out, and there seems a friend of ours, Alison, she's a fantastic runner. We went and crewed 100K for her earlier this year. It was her first 100K, but she's run her whole life, fantastic runner, and she totally killed it, right? But it seems that there's kind of a mentality now in bigger is better. And so people are like, well, I'm going to start running, and in 8 months, I'm going to do a 100-mile trail race, but they haven't put in the time. And the Yukon 1000 is the 100-mile trail race of paddle racing to me in a lot of ways, but with a lot less support. You don't have aid stations, and you're totally on your own. And so I think for people who are looking at getting into this and haven't done anything like this before, the Yukon River Quest is an amazing race. It's really well supported. It's got a storied history. Tons of people do it. amazing support. Like, is that like for you, if you're someone that's looking at getting into the Yukon 1000 at some point, would that be an advisable first step to get a taste of it and see if it's the right thing for you? Or is it a totally different thing altogether in your mind?
So it's a bit of both. So that's not a cop out. Because I can't say that it's advisable because I never did it prior to doing the 1000. So I guess it's on you. Any experience is better than no experience, isn't it? It doesn't matter what it is. If you've got the time, if you can do it, then that's great. Go and do it. But all I would say is my only problem that I have with the quest is it slightly lures people into the wrong way. And I've seen it in a few teams where, you're really fatigued, you're tired on the quest, and you land. I think they have like 300 marshals apply to come and help. Yep. It's a cool thing, isn't it? And they do it amazingly. They really do. But there's people there in fluorescent vests going, pull your boat up there, get out there. We've built your tent, and there was people, I know people that have had chefs and stuff and support crews.
Right.
None of that is there. None of that is there on the 1000. If you make a bad decision, you will live it. It's on you. So I worry from it because it's so locally well organized. And it goes back to that simple thing: zoom out and look where you are. And you've really got to do your own work because beyond Dawson City is a different place. But before that, pretty commercial. You may not think it is, but it's pretty busy. It's pretty commercial. You're in helicopter range of 3 or 4 gold mining companies that will come and pick you up for $2,000 if you really need them to. If you can't be bothered paddling anymore and you've not got a genuine injury, you're in that helicopter range and that bubble, and you've got a hospital in Dawson. You're okay. You go past Dawson 50 Ks and you're in the wild. No one's coming. The cliff edge bank carved by the ice. None of your big bush planes with big fat tires are landing there. The river flows, the log jams, the stuff flowing down it. You don't see your boat planes anymore, and it's all the way. And there's only one bridge where you can get out, and there's a road, and that's right down there. Your hamlets, small houses are isolated, they're cut off. Yeah, it's a different. Beyond Dawson is you can get lured into, because it's a great way to finish at Dawson. It's a cool, super cool, trendy town now.
Yeah,
you can just sort of forget where you are, and certainly beyond it is just a different game. It really is. The flats, the Arctic Circle. It's a completely different ball game, and so people have got to do that homework. They've got to understand it. They've got to really research it, and I try not to do too much so that they're forced to do that, and they really, it's why we do it there. It's why I'm intrigued. It's why I keep going up there for expeditions. There's no cell phone. You can get on it or phone to whoever you want on your satellite phone, but they're probably not coming. At least not within. At least within 6 to 8 hours, if the weather's good and the shoreline is low, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, it's. I think one of the really cool things that, like, in hindsight, looking back at the race, that I really dug was we had a GPS and sort of tracking speeds and stuff more than anything. And I remember the fastest we went was when we passed Dawson. So the flow of the river is the quickest once you get past Dawson. So when you commit to being on river left, where the current is, and not river right, it's like, dude, you're committed so hard. And then because you blink and you miss it. You're like, oh, there goes Dawson. It's like, well, there goes the last chance for a hamburger for 4 days or whatever it was. And then the other cool part of it is, as you get to the end, and I don't know if it's changed much since we were there, but it's a freaking Atco trailer. Like when we finished at the takeout, like the hotel's an Atco trailer. You like roll in and there's a greasy cheeseburger with like bacon on it ready for you. That was damn good. I remember, Adam. And like a super stanky Atco trailer, and then you get on a bus back to Fairbanks. It's like there's no fanfare. You're really in the wild, and I think you've got to enjoy that being in the wild component, and like for real, like up to your elbows in it kind of thing, right?
Yeah, and so talking about the podcast, it's a real deal, and it affects people. The big green can eat you. It can get you're in that boat, and you're 7-8 feet apart. You may have a couple of days of real wind. You think you've seen wind before, and then you got there. You can barely. You maybe have to whack the boat to change paddles if you're in a canoe because you can't hear each other. You're not talking about anything for 18 hours because you can't hear each other. And your own little brain going over it. You've got to rub a neck because you're so tired. You're like this, it's it's all part of it, isn't it? It's all part of the experience. It's all part of the test, and that's what makes it intriguing. And I think ultimately that's why it's so interesting, the people that come back. There's a lot of people that come back 2 and 3 times that have done some serious stuff, but they still come back. And we had a couple of Brit guys that had the world record for rowing the Atlantic, and they got out, and they were 2 top blokes, and they were humbled by it. And their sort of words, you know, I was recording a little clip that when everybody gets out, capture that at the first moment, and I was like, you know, how does that compare? And they were like, that's far harder than rowing the Atlantic. It's so condensed. It's 30 days packaged into 7 days. It's intense. It's demanding. It's hard. And you know, they're 2 guys that go on a circuit around the world doing these things. They say, we never repeat anything twice. They're like, can we come back next year? So there's something about it that works, you know. And I keep going back. It's got it all, isn't it?
Yeah, man. It's a great legacy for Peter because he put so much energy into it, and it's so nice to have someone that's, you know, got such an affinity with that area carrying it on right now. I think Adam just commented that I kind of lied. We actually had 2 cheeseburgers. We had 2 burgers twice. Yeah. We were pretty freaking hungry by the end of that thing.
The burgers, aren't they? So like in England, you get a burger and it's like as thin as your iPhone.
Yeah, these things.
You're like, it's no good. You go there and you go to another burger and you get like half a cow with a hook on it. Yeah, it's awesome.
Oh, you lost me. I'm back. Sorry about that. My internet broke down. Yeah, we were talking about big burgers.
Yeah, mate. I was just saying, in England, you get a little iPhone thin burger. Out there, it's like half a cow with a hoof on it. You know, it's like
so good.
Still got teeth and stuff on it. It's awesome. Yeah,
it was so good. So I think something that would be really fun to chat about, and I just sort of thought about it now, is from the 2 of us is tips and tricks. So if you do get accepted, or if you've already been accepted and it's your first time in the Yukon 1000 for 2021, some of the tips and tricks that we've learned the hard way or learned from others the hard way, and I think you and I will both certainly have a bunch of them. So let's just go backwards and forwards. Let's go with the Yukon 1000 top tips with John and Simon. John can go first because he's the organizer. He should know more than me.
So my top tip is like, I keep using the word, but mastery. Obsess over it. You know, use everything all the equipment you're gonna use. Just think about it. You know, it's the simplest things that people do. Like, do I need a down jacket? Well, what happens when it gets wet? Synthetic's going to do better. It's a simple, you know, it's a simple one, but really obsess over your kit. So all these little things aren't niggering away at you when you're doing it. Well, have I got the right bit of kit? You know, is this going to go wrong? You know, refine as much corporate knowledge as you can. Understand the route. What's going to happen again? You know, what's coming around the next bend. Know it before you pull the map out. That you roughly know where you are, and you've got confidence in a team, in each other's abilities. You know, it just builds. You're just on a good footing, aren't you? You're going to enjoy it. If you turn up, if you haven't put the research in and you turn up cuffing it, you're going to have a horrendous experience at some point in it, but it's going to be a lot worse if you don't believe in each other, your skill sets, and you've got the right kit. It's going to be a whole lot worse, and you're going to get exposed. And you can see that when you do the 1000. At the end of it, you can see the people that maybe didn't do that, and they come out and they look in. You know, they're a little bit lost, and they're a little bit, well, what just happened? And maybe it takes time to realize what an experience it was, as opposed to I just survived that.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, that's a good start. That is a good start. Like, the gear thing is crazy, right? You got to have your crap together with your gear for sure. And less is more, in my opinion. Like, you have the mandatory safety stuff that you need, but less is more, because our strategy in the race was the only way we figured we had a chance of beating the Voyagers was to not get out of the boat for 18 hours at a time. Yeah, like, that was it. So our strategy was to get in the boat at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. or whatever it was, and not get out of the boat until 18 hours later. And what that led to was some of the most horrific campsites I've ever endured in my life. Like, buggy, silty, boggy, gross. But if you want to be competitive, I think really that's what you've got to do. Like, you've got to spend the time in the boat. The other pro tip that I would have, and worked really, really well for myself and for Adam, is he and I are really good mates and did a lot of adventures together and worked together back in the past, but we hadn't seen each other in 4 or 5 years. So we had this fantastic relationship to build on. And it basically started, I was just like, hey, bro, does anyone want to go and suffer for 6 or 7 days? And he was like, yeah, I'm up for that. Didn't even know what it was. But we're like, all right, let's do it. And then, yeah, basically it was just, we just caught up. We were sleep deprived, talking total drivel half the time, but we caught up on 5 or 6 years of not seeing each other. So socially, it was an outstanding experiment.
Yeah. And your partner's really, really, really important. And you can see that in the teams. If they're not the right sort of. I see a bloke who's on it called Chip Walter. A legend of humor bloke, really humble, great humor. But he's one of those key characters you want in a team that when stuff's bad, he'll just make light of it and it'll all be good. And it'll pull the positive out of it. And you got to have that. When you're looking at each other's partnership, it's no good you being the same type of character. You've got to bounce off each other and pull each other out. And it's really evident when you see these people out on the river, if they are very much like each other or they've got a bit of different personality and character, that they can pull each other on. Because everybody's going to have a bad day and a good day in your pair. You are. Whether you're getting injured or you've got a niggle playing up and then it wears off. I mean, you're all going to feel hurt at some point, and it's going to, you either have to carry it or it's going to go away. And that's it. And so it's really important picking that partner, like you say. And the guy I did it with, I trained with another bloke, and his little baby was born sort of 6 weeks premature. So he was like, I can't go. So it's like I rang out this other bloke that I used to get trained with, and who I didn't want him to do it because he was an absolute machine. And I was like, I'm just gonna it's gonna really hurt with this guy. And he was like, yeah, I'll do it. And so when we got there, he was like, just show me the green light and let's go. I'd like, calm down. Just calm down. Just like a little motorboat in the front, just keep going. But we were lucky, so we're both of a similar experience. And so, our strengths were like you. We knew we were never going to stop at an 18-hour period, on the hour, every hour we'd stop for 5 minutes, eat a bar, drink a litre, go, because we couldn't paddle for shit. So we had to make up for it in some way.
Yeah.
And then 6 hours sleep, whereas I saw teams of like 6 hours, no joke, we'd stop in 15 minutes, we'd clean the boat, we'd eat food, and we were in our sleeping bags going to sleep.
Yeah.
15 minutes easy, jet ball on. We had the kit, because we do this for a living. Sleep gone, and I think luckily we never see people had these amazing pictures at the end of these awesome islands they stayed on. We were like, we slept on a beaver dam. We didn't anywhere. Just like sleep on a chicken's lip. Don't care.
Yeah, man. It was that was some of the most memorable parts of it too, right? Like you've got the military background, which is very efficient. We're probably less so, but we had just a system. And I think if people are as a team going into it, practice that side of it. Like in your training is practice you're going to hit the beach, someone grabs the tent, someone grabs, goes and takes a dump or whatever they need to do. And then you switch jobs and you're in bed in 15 minutes. We had a system where we cooked all of our meals on our boat. So we just carved out a piece of closed cell foam that was about the same depth as the jet boil canister. And then Adam had it set up in the front. And so he would cook, I would paddle. So we get up in the morning, get on the water. He would just be cooking right off the bat. We'd eat our food. Like the gap was too big between the front compartment and the back compartment in the sea kayak. So he'd hand it back on the paddle, like balance it. And then we'd eat and float. And then he would paddle and I'd promptly like fall asleep in my chest. And then he'd wake me up and then he'd fall asleep and we just like repeat the cycle. And then we'd eat just like an hour or two before we got into camp. And then the other thing that was really good was we would start putting we'd put the bug jackets on about 20 minutes before we found a campsite because you just get mullered by those things as soon as you stop, especially in the flat. So I know cooking on the boat worked really well for us. I've heard people say that it didn't work for them, but it worked really well for us. We had a good system going.
So when I did the race, so it was the first time when I did it in 16 that the kayak, which Peter originally set up the race, the canoe beat the kayak. And just we see me come behind us with these two Kenyan blokes, great guys.
Yes, Marcus and Peter.
They did what you did. They had this phone. It all looks awesome, taped onto front, jet boil. Yep. It looked like, I was like, hey, that looks good, guys. And so I remember meeting them the next day. We sort of got in the day before them. They're coming in. We got up early to go and see them come in. And Marcus got, really lovely blonde, long hair.
He's pretty good looking.
Headline up here, no eyebrows. You know, clearly it didn't work. You know, wall explosion. Yeah, you know, he's lucky, but it didn't work for those guys. But as you say, you've got to practice with this kit, and so you know, one of the downsides to this is I say to people, you've got on the race, I send them a video PowerPoint, give them a touch of information to go away, and but it's on you. I'm not going to mummy cuddle you. I'm not going to tell you this is the packing list. This is what I'll check. If you haven't got that kit, I'm not going to let you go. This is it's on you. And then you know you do get people emailing you back going, we're not going to take tents. We're going to take hammocks. I'm like, okay, what are you going to tie? What are you going to tie the hammock to? Because at a certain point there's just saplings. You know, but you're like, oh man, do I have to really reply to this email? And so, you know, you kind of, I mean, it's just, but you get stupid ones. We're just going to eat cold food for 6 days. Okay. Let's see how you feel after go in and live on two days of that shit, dry food for 2 days and see how you feel eating it. Like, you know, and that's another one, you know, try your food before you turn up. Don't just buy it and go, I know it's expensive stuff, but try it, you know, and do a day's paddling and see how your body reacts to it. You know, we had people turn up with these. When some guys turn up, and they had no food. They were living on this like mixed water protein powder. They didn't, I mean, they got through it, but they didn't look well at the end. They just didn't look well. They just didn't look well.
Because I think you can do it. You can do it and enjoy it, right? Like there are times your back hurts and you. Like I remember my hands by the end. Like again, I'm a lifelong paddler. My hands were just like shredded. Like I had duct tape like half an inch thick on my hands, and there's not a great deal that's super enjoyable about that. But there is a part of it, if you're wired right for the race, that just goes, you know what, this is pretty damn cool.
Yeah, and it's like you sat in a canoe and a kayak's even. So you sat in a canoe and you're like, my ass is numb, man. I can't even feel it. You know,
dude, it's so bad.
And you're like, and then you switch sides. And you go, well, at least I'm not in a kayak. And then the kayak guys are like, oh my ass is numb, and I'm wet. And at least I'm not on a sup standing up all day long. So,
oh my god,
it's a shared misery.
Man.
Yeah.
Oh, shared misery. Yeah, it's all different, right? And I know there's a couple of stand-up paddleboard ladies listening to this right now, and I think they're pretty fired up to give it a try. I couldn't even imagine standing for 18 hours a day. I'd be like I'd just be like prone on it, paddling. That'd be me.
Yeah.
So Kelsey's a local gal here in Calgary who had expressed interest in signing up sometime in the coming years. She's a climber. Her and her partner are climbers and pretty badass outdoors people. So what's the most outlandish question you've had to answer? And you can speak freely.
Yeah, you know, it's like I can be quite bright, sort of abrupt and dry, and I'm sort of initially, you know, I'm a straight old bloke. I'll take no nonsense, and so, you know, and I say to people when we're there, you know, no question's a stupid question, but if I ignore you, it's because it's a stupid question. I'm not going to answer it, and so I like to think I filter those people out, but you do, yeah. I mean, you get it's lots of it's not so much the big stupid questions, the little ones, and it's when they repeat themselves that I get worried. You know, I'm like, wow, you've really not bothered to look at this yet, and you're just turning up. So yeah, I can't specifically think about. I can't specifically think of one. I don't really want to call anyone out. It's not really my style. I mean, it's not so much the stupid questions. It's what's behind it that they clearly haven't bothered. I get them weekly, you know. So if people ask me, I just send them a link to Google. I'm just rude. I'll just send them a link to Google, tell them to use Google, find out for themselves. If I start a precedent, then and I got some good feedback from the guys. And some of the guys in the US sort of race circuit said, look, John, you know, it's nice what you do, the way you do it. It works. It brings a different dimension. You're not there to mummy cuddle people and look after the customer. I'm not. You're there for a completely different reason. You're there to test yourselves, all of you. You know, I'm there to get you on the river and hopefully make sure you come out the other end. When you come out the other end, I relax. I'm your best buddy in the world.
Yeah.
But you know, that's the great thing about the race I'm running. One is its only safety mechanism is you guys, is each other, and that proved that theory proved itself on the last one. You know, the other team saved another team. They pulled them out of the river. Their fire knocked up in minutes. They brought them around from hypothermia. They coaxed them back onto the boat. They got their phones for them. Within 10 minutes, they had a satellite phone call to us to tell us who they were, where they were. Yeah, we intercepted them like 8 hours later down the river on a sub board, paddled out to just quickly see them and see if they were all right. And it works. And so there, my theory, at the moment has been proven that it's each other as our safety blanket. And as long as we get the right people with the right mindset, then it will work. Yeah.
Yeah, man. It's like for those of you who are listening who know about the Barkley marathons, and if you don't, look it up. It's pretty awesome. The Yukon 1000 is the Barkley marathons of adventure kayak racing. It's pretty badass. So we've reached the hour mark, John, and it's 11:00 p.m. where you are right now. So and you've got a wee one, so we'll let you get to your rest and relaxation and maybe a pint or something. But thanks so much, dude, for taking the time, and good luck in the coming year with all of the goings on. And we will watch the how this rolls out for 2021 with great interest, and you'll probably have a bunch more people applying for it, so you'll have a lot more interest to wade through. But hopefully they'll be well prepared because they've listened to this. So keep us in the loop with the Yukon 2000 because I'm going to be the first one to sign up. And yeah, thanks, mate. Cheers for your time and have a wonderful evening.
Yeah, good luck. Good health. See you guys.
Good on you, mate. Cheers.
Yeah.